Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden takes place from about 1929 to 1946. It mostly took place in Kyoto, Japan, in the geisha district of Gion. As a reader, I didn't initially respond to the book. I found it was hard to get into and sometimes hard to follow and it wasn't exactly relatable because the story took a while to develop and it was a little slow, and I wouldn't recommend it if you want a fast-moving or suspenseful story. But if you're looking for insight into the Asian culture, specifically that of the geishas, I would recommend it. Arthur Golden's attitude isn't really shown in the text because he's writing it all from Chiyo's point of view, but the book does a very good job of showing Chiyo's attitude changing throughout her life and as she's growing up and experiencing these new things. In this story, we're sharing in Chiyo's journey from being a fisherman's daughter to becoming a successful geisha, including her time during World War II. Chiyo's life is made miserable by Hatsumomo when she first arrives in Gion, but later Hatsumomo's rival Mameha takes her as an apprentice and continues her training as a geisha, allowing her to be successful. Chiyo, who becomes known as Sayori, earns the affection of many of the men she's entertaining, but an issue arises when she only cares for the chairman. Nobu, the chairman's business partner, has taken to her and he's continuing to help her throughout her journey as a geisha, and he's allowing her to become more successful. The protagonist is Chiyo because you follow her through her life and you get to watch her grow as a person and change and adapt to her new situations. Hatsumomo is the antagonist because through most of the story, she's trying to ruin Chiyo's reputation and make her life miserable. As the rest of the story, Chiyo has to deal with things like society and the war and some personal issues. I believe the main conflict in the book is Hatsumomo and her views of Chiyo. After Chiyo arrives at the Okiya, she is a maid, and yet Hatsumomo still makes it her goal to make her life miserable. She does this by racking up Chiyo's debts, by making her ruin a kimono or accusing her of stealing a brooch, and it turns mother and granny against Chiyo. All of this leads to Chiyo attempting to run away, which makes her situation worse. After Mameha starts her training as a geisha, Hatsumomo continues to make Chiyo's life difficult by changing how many of the important men see her, and eventually Chiyo becomes successful and Mother supports her by kicking out Hatsumomo, even though she originally supported Hatsumomo. Near the end of the story, World War II starts, and Chiyo's geisha district is closed partway through the war, and all the geishas start to panic because they would have to work in factories, and that's not a desirable job. Chiyo's friend Nobu sends her to live with a family who is sewing parachutes for the military at the time, and she stays to help get his kimono business back off the ground before she returns to Gion. I feel I'm most closely identified with Nobu because Nobu is known for his morals and principles. Nobu definitely isn't someone you want to be on the bad side of, but it's really easy to get there if you don't have principles. Nobu stops talking to Chiyo after she takes the other man as her Dana, and he eventually forgives her for this because it wasn't entirely her fault, but he can't forgive her after she betrays him once again by being with the minister. And I believe that people should have to work to earn trust, and that once they break that trust, it is going to be really hard to earn it back, and I don't understand why he started to trust her again. I believe that the morals and loyalty are some of the most important character traits a person could have. There are many characters evolving throughout the story. Chiyo begins as a naive child and ends up having her eyes opened through these experiences. When she was young and she first got to Gion, she saw the good in people and she was hopeful for seeing her family again. But she ended up becoming more and more cynical after these major events happening to her, like her Misuage and her first Dana and the war. And Hatsumomo starts off very jealous, and the jealousy is continuing to grow as Chiyo's successes. And she's devolving into a terrible person whose main goal is to ruin Chiyo. Pumpkin started out friendly towards Chiyo and helps her with adjusting to her new situation. But Mother chooses Chiyo as the Aokio's daughter, and Pumpkin is outraged by this and tries to get back at Chiyo for stealing the Aokio from her. Mameha doesn't change as drastically as them, but she takes Chiyo as her apprentice and is kind and considerate and is her mentor. But after Mameha's Dana bids on Chiyo's Misuage, Mameha blames Chiyo and shuts herself off from Chiyo and is distancing herself from being the mentor Chiyo needs. Chiyo has very pretty eyes, and they are constantly mentioned throughout the story because it's one of the first things people are noticing about her. Chiyo's eyes are a light bluish gray, and the Japanese are interpreting this as her having water in her personality. The water is symbolizing fluidity and change, and Chiyo has many changes in her life, starting from when she was 9 and taken to this new home. But the water in her personality allows her to adapt well and to this change. Her eyes are also very lightly colored, and many of the people believed that the eyes were the windows to the soul, so when they first met her, they felt they could see through her and that she was open and truthful, even though that wasn't always the case. One thing Chiyo is constantly doing is changing how she acts and dresses to fit into the image of how society wants her to be. Chiyo is constantly manipulated and used by those who don't want her to move up in society, or who want to move themselves up in society and this is showing humanity as being selfish and self-serving because they don't want her to move up because they want to secure their own place in society, or they're using her because it benefits them. The story has dejected and depressing tone that adds to the meaning of the literature by making you feel for Chiyo more. The events of Chiyo's life weren't always fortunate, and the tone makes you more sympathetic towards her. The story was written based on Chiyo looking back at the events and her feelings at the time, so you see her reactions to events and through a somewhat more experienced and wiser self, and she's kind of analyzing what she did and how she would change that. And throughout the story, the author is using many analogies to explain how Chiyo is feeling or how others are acting in order to make you better understand. The characters are also using analogies to explain new concepts to Chiyo. And due to Chiyo narrating the story while looking back, she's able to question the actions of herself and others, and she can give her opinions on how others may be feeling, which all allows the reader to gain a deeper understanding of the text, along with making us more sympathetic towards these characters and their experiences.